Good evening and welcome to the joint meeting of the Assembly Committee on Ways and Means and Senate Committee on Finance. Committee Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Senator Cannizzaro. Senator John Darrow Loop. Senator Gokachia. Senator Harris. Senator Neal. Senator Wynn. Senator Severs-Gansert. Senator Titus. Assemblywoman Anderson. Assemblywoman Backus. Assemblywoman Brown-May. Assemblywoman Dickman. Assemblywoman Gorlow. Assemblyman Hafen. Assemblywoman Howdegi. Assemblywoman Kasama. Assemblyman Miller. Assemblyman O'Neill. Assemblywoman Peters. Assemblyman Watts. Assemblyman Yeager. Chairman Ro Moreno.
And I am here. Will you please mark Assemblywoman Backus absent excused? And we thank you all for joining us. We know this was a short notice meeting. However, we are here tonight for revised budget closings on our statewide decision units. And I'm going to turn the meeting over to our fiscal analyst, Ms. Kaufman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This recommendation or decision for the committee is related to the judicial branch as well as the legislative branch reconsideration for COLAs. During the statewide decision units closing on May 1st, 2023, general fund appropriations of $117.8 million in fiscal year 2024 and $174.7 million in 2025 were approved for the judicial branch, legislative branch, executive branch, the Nevada System of Higher Education, and the TRPA related to the COLAs that were recommended by the governor. Of that amount, a total of $68.4 million in 2024 and $103 million in 2025 was specifically allocated for the executive branch, the judicial branch, and the legislative branch. Those amounts were based on 80% of the total calculated COLA needed for all three branches, and were based on position information provided in the governor's recommended budget. The 20% reduction was to account for vacancy savings that naturally occurred. In addition, the executive branch has economies of scale where one agency may not need the additional funds that are set aside in the salary adjustment account, but another might. By providing for that pool of funding, the executive branch has the ability to cover shortages within its accounts at 100% if needed. During the judicial branch's closing, the committees recommended that all salaries within the judicial branch be accounted for in one new budget account titled Judicial Branch Staff Salaries, with the understanding that the funding approved in that new budget would be limited in allocation specifically for salaries of the judicial branch that could not be augmented by any other sources. Because that account cannot be augmented, the judicial branch would only be provided 80% of the calculated cost of the COLAs, and it would not have any other mechanism to fund those COLAs if their vacancies were less than 20%. As such, it appears that it would be more appropriate to fund the COLAs of the judicial branch at 100% to ensure there is sufficient funding to support the COLA increases approved by the money committees. The legislative branch has a similar issue with its COLAs in that it only has one main account. As such, if it does not experience a vacancy rate of 20% or less, 20% or more, it too would not have the ability to meet the salaries augmented, inclusive of the COLAs approved by the money committees. In addition, the committees approved an addition of 117 positions within the Legislative Council Bureau after the statewide decision units were approved. As such, the salaries of the new staff are not accounted for in the funding to support the approved COLAs. In order to correct the issues for both the judicial branch and the legislative branch, the following would need to be considered. Rescind the committee's vote from May 1st, 2023, to approve general fund appropriations of $117.8 million in 2024 and $174.7 million in 2025, and highway fund appropriations of $123.7 million in 2024 and $35 million in 2025, as calculated by fiscal staff, to fund COLAs of 8 or 10% in 2024 and an additional 4% in 2025. And approve general fund appropriations of $121 million in 2024 and $179.3 million in 2025, and highway fund appropriations of $23.7 million in fiscal year 2024 and $35.7 million in fiscal year 2025, as calculated by fiscal staff, to fund the COLAs of 8 or 10% for fiscal year 2024 and as well as the 4% COLA in 2025. This would provide the legislative branch with $5.9 million in fiscal year 2024 and $8.6 million in 2025, and the judicial branch with $2.1 million in fiscal year 2024 and $3.2 million in fiscal year 2025. And that concludes my presentation, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much for that presentation. Before we go to discussion, I will accept a motion to rescind the committee's vote on May 1st, 2023 of the approved amounts and approve the general fund appropriations as stated by staff.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and I will so move.
I have a motion from Senator Donjero Loop, a second from Assemblywoman Hadigi. Discussion on the motion? Senator Gansert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, it's difficult to have the discussion. We don't have the document in front of us. I just wrote down the numbers, so I have some of the numbers and understand what the delta is on those. And then second, historically, at what rate have we funded the vacancy level? What is the vacancy level we've used for the executive, legislative, and judicial branch? If we've been consistent and always used 20% for everyone, so what historically have we done as far as vacancy rates?
Madam Chair, through you to Senator Severs-Ganser. Last session, the COLAs were provided for at 80%. It was a 1% COLA in 2023, and so the magnitude of the COLA wasn't as much as what it is currently with the COLAs that are provided right now. I would indicate, though, too, with the changes that were made to the judicial branches salary adjustment account. Originally in 2021, they were also allowed to go to the Board of Examiners, and they were included in that pool of funding for the executive branch. And with the judicial branch being isolated to their own budget account and being provided for as a separate branch, this is also isolating the resources that they have available, so they would not be allowed to also participate in the pool of funding that would be provided for the Board of Examiners and the executive branch. With respect to the legislative branch, the funding goes to the legislative fund, and so if there were any instances in the past where they did not meet the salary savings, they would have to reduce their operating expenditures in order to come up with the savings to account for that.
So if I understand that correctly, then both the legislative and judicial branch had salary savings expectations of 20% last time. The judicial branch could go to the Board of Examiners if they needed to get extra money, but they can't do that any longer. And then the legislative branch has their own fund, sort of a savings account, which they could access if they had vacancy rates that were less than that. And then I know this is, I kind of wonder what we ended up doing with higher ed, because higher ed came to us with sort of the same issue. Did we end up funding them fully, or did we end up funding them at a percentage?
Madam Chair, through you to Senator Severs-Ganser, Nevada System of Higher Education was funded at 65.9% of their total operating expenditures. So it would be the percentage that they receive in general fund appropriations.
And, there were some discussions about that 65.9, because originally I was a little confused because I thought it was like 80% of 80, but I was told at one point in time that their budget, the pie of their budget is 65.9 is general fund. Is that why we've funded them? So did we fund them at 100% of whatever the general fund is usually, or did we have a vacancy rate for them?
Wayne Thorley for the record, LCB Fiscal Analysis Division. So what was approved by the money committees this session is 100% of the general fund portion of the state-supported budgets of NSHE, which comes out to, the general fund portion is about approximately 66%.
Okay.
But 100% of that
Okay.
was approved as
Wants to
funding
be
for COLAs.
consistent. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Speaker Yeager.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I just wanted to thank everyone who identified this potential issue and put us in a place where we can rectify it. Obviously, with the changes in the judicial structure, it would be disconcerting to me if we were to say as a committee that we were going to fund COLAs, but then only provide 80% of that funding with no mechanism for those employees for that division of government to come back and ask for that money. And same with the legislative. And, just want to emphasize that because of the size of the COLAs, that would be a real issue for us not to come back and I think fund 100%. In my mind, this is a reflection of the separation of powers in different branches of government. The executive has the ability to come back if the vacancy savings aren't there, but the legislative branch and the judicial branch do not. So I'm certainly supportive of the motion and just grateful for those who were able to identify this issue before we got out of this building, because I think that would have been a real problem going forward.
Thank you so much for those comments. I would have to say I concur. Members, any other comments? Seeing none. All in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Maybe our shortest meeting ever as a joint committee. And that brings us to the very last item on our agenda, which is public comment. If you'd like to call in with public comment, our number is 888-475-4499. Our meeting ID is 8626769148. If there's anyone here in Carson City that would like to provide public comment, I invite you to the table. Seeing none, we do not have a link up to Las Vegas, unfortunately, so we will not have anyone there. But BPS, do we have anyone joining us by phone that would like to make public comment tonight?
Thank you, Chair. The public line is open and working, and there are no callers at this time.
Thank you so much. So members, with that, this meeting is adjourned, and Ways and Means member, I'll see you right back downstairs. We have one more bill hearing tonight.